With guests now choosing properties based on their rest and recovery environment before they even consider the restaurant, sleep has moved from the background infrastructure to the experience itself. Today, we explore how leading hotels are designing for rest, recovery, and the future of guest satisfaction in our session, Designing Rest, Sleep, Recovery, and the Future of Luxury Hospitality.
From our headquarters in California, JLA Hospitality connects a global network of showrooms, design studios, and distribution centers, powered by over 1,000 team members working in real time. We serve all of hospitality, including all service levels of hotels, distributors, designers, vacation rental partners, and boutique properties with a complete one-source solution for guest room essentials. Our collections span every key category, including basic bedding, sheets, decorative bedding, bath accessories, bath textiles, and apparel, each crafted with superior design and uncompromising quality for a product that not only delivers a luxurious guest experience, but also delivers on durability expectations. Our global sourcing network ensures that each product offers the most compelling features and benefits at the most competitive price. The all-new JLA Hospitality website offers product training, category education, and a full host of laundry and care information to support your JLA products throughout their room life. Scan the QR code or visit us at www.jlahospitality.com to discover a whole new world of home-inspired and hospitality-engineered products.
You're watching the International Luxury Hotel Association webinar series. We unite a global ecosystem of over 1 million professionals to cut through the noise and architect the future of luxury hospitality. Today's session is brought to you by JLA Hospitality. Now I'd like to hand over to our moderator, Heather Kolakowski, Executive Director at the Cornell Institute for Healthy Futures.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Heather Kolakowski, the Executive Director at the Cornell Institute for Healthy Futures. The Cornell Institute for Healthy Futures is the first academic center in the country to combine hospitality, environmental design, and health policy and management into a broad-based platform to improve service in healthcare, wellness, senior living, and other related industries. Through our network of academic and industry professionals, we collaborate and share ideas to focus on our vision of a society where everyone receives excellent health and wellness-related services in well-managed, well-designed, and hospitable facilities. On behalf of the International Luxury Hotel Association, welcome to today's webinar, Designing Rest, Sleep, Recovery, and the Future of Luxury Hospitality. Today's conversation is made possible by JLA Hospitality. Something has shifted in what luxury travelers are asking for. They're arriving with sleep trackers on their wrists, they're booking properties for their sleep environments, and leaving reviews that mention the quality of their rest before they even mention the food. Sleep is no longer a background infrastructure for a growing segment of the luxury market. It's the experience. In fact, an analysis of over 95,000 online reviews and ratings for 99 independent high-end hotels, sleep quality was one of the key drivers that impacted guest satisfaction scores. Today, we're exploring what that shift means in practice, how leading properties are designing for rest, who's leading that strategy internally, and what the return looks like when sleep becomes a true differentiator. So today, let's start by introducing our panelists. Blima, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Blima Aaron-Troy. I'm the founder and CEO of the Designers Group. We are an international design firm focused on making an impact with the designs that we're creating. And in hospitality, that is such an integral part of people's experiences, and even more so people's sleep that they have, because that is restorative. And that is so much of the reason that people are traveling. They are looking for different options when it comes to wellness and experiences. And so much of that is encouraged by a restorative, restful sleep. So I'm excited about this topic. We've been doing some research and definitely are looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say and learning from each other.
Brett?
Hi, everybody. My name is Brett Reif. I am the president of sales and the divisional lead for hospitality for JLA Home. JLA Home is one of the largest home accessories, home fashions companies and suppliers in the business. So we supply to retailers, all of your favorite stores, and work in hospitality segments as well across some of your favorite brands too. So providing them with products across bunches of different categories. And this particular topic, because I've been around sleep in hotels for the better part of my career, about 25 years now, is an incredibly big passion of mine. I love talking about it and love the research behind it and just trying to develop and design product to meet those unique needs. It is a very different world than what it used to be in the hotel and hospitality environment when it comes to sleep and rest and all the things that go with it. So thanks for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Excellent. Patrick.
Hello, Heather. Thank you for hosting this panel today. My name is Patrick Huey. I am the Director of Global Wellbeing for Hyatt Hotels. And sleep, in the hotel business, sleep is a premium. Sleep is what we offer, a place to sleep and rest when you come to one of our locations around the world. And it's been a core focus for our well-being strategy for the last 3 years. We really understood that to have a true well-being experience, and there are many studies and facts and numbers to support this, that for guests to be happy at a property, to return to a property, how they sleep, in addition to their room, their spa, their food and beverage, how they sleep is a critical component of capturing that guest over and over and over again to keep coming back to us. So I'm very happy to get into this conversation today.
Well, welcome. As you can see, we have a solid panel of experts with great insights into what we can do to create a better sleep experience for our guests. So I'm really excited to kind of get into the topic. And we have some questions that we've been talking about in our pre-planning calls and thinking about our perspectives. Because right now, the luxury traveler here in 2026 has a different relationship to sleep than even a few years ago, right? So sleep tourism really is a category. And as Patrick mentioned, creating an experience where people want to come back because they remember it as a positive thing is so critical in today's landscape of hospitality offerings. But everyone's different, and it becomes a challenge to be able to offer something to individual guests when you have to create an environment that's a bit standard across your portfolio. So with the work that all of you are doing, what are you finding that guests are really asking for when it comes to their stay and when it comes to their environment to help promote a healthier sleep?
So at Hyatt, we were very intentional about how we would address sleep for our guests. We actually partnered with a woman named Nancy Rothstein, who is the sleep guru for LinkedIn. And she came up with 10 steps for us to follow for when guests and travelers on the consumer side, the business side, the leisure traveler side want to get a great night's sleep at our properties. And so we think about sleep in terms of not just what happens when you go to bed, because your sleep is tied to what you've done through your entire day to get there. So we're looking at how do our guests wake up in the morning. We're saying, get into nature, get into the sun, make sure you're hydrating all day, make sure that you're not, imbibing too much in the course of your stay. So when it's time to go to bed, you've played with your algorithms. We've also said, think about how you unwind and start to think about sleep, a few hours before you actually get into the actual bed to start going to sleep. In all of our rooms, you're seeing the traditional pieces like blackout curtains. You're seeing those weird lights that blink and pop in rooms not be so prevalent in design anymore in our hotels. And one thing that we did because, at Hyatt, we're thinking about not just the luxury traveler, we're thinking about travelers up and down the scale because we have hotels that speak to people in all these different areas of their journey. And so we created a sleep kit. And in that sleep kit, We have, the fun pieces like an eye mask and earplugs and things like that. But we also are working with essential oils. We're working with adaptogenic teas. We're working with shower steamers to really help bring that guest into a different state of mind to prepare to sleep. And I would tell you, I can't share specific numbers, but when I say the Sleep Kit has sold well into the thousands across our entire network of hotels, because people take this very, very seriously. We've also included those sleep tips, those 10 sleep tips with Nancy Rothstein to help guide them along their way to get a great night's sleep in our hotels and when they go home. I will also say in the meetings and event space, those sleep tips are one of our most asked for items from our groups that come into our hotels. So we see in real time that people are asking for how can I sleep better within your properties? And we lean heavily into the sleep hygiene portion of it. We're not talking about, what's on your Fitbit or what equipment you're using. We do it from a much more organic, a much more personal space for the guests. So that's been the broad approach of how we've done it. We continue to evolve and rethink and understand how we can improve on that, which we're doing right now. But I will say we haven't had to move a mountain to do a sleep kit, right? And the effectiveness of it and the embracing of it across all of the business has been quite meaningful and impactful.
That's great. What a great amenity for your guests that can be adapted in different locations and different properties. But the fact that people are asking for it because they know is really, really key.
And right now we're working on launching in our Latin American properties. We're doing a pilot there, an entire sleep program through our spas that we've built these beautiful, and in that we are using technology, a device called NuCalm to really sort of help the mind from the beginning of that spa experience, really sort of disrupt the patterns of the mind to bring you into a beta state of rest. And in that, we are blending the technology with the more traditional spa treatment to really bring the guest to a different state of awareness to actually sleep. So we're combining technology with the power of aroma, with the power of human touch, and the power of intention to build a sleep experience. And that's how we talk to, I know your question was, how do you talk to so many different people? And for us, we use the tools that we have to speak to people where they are and where their interests lie. Because there's not a one size fit all. For some people, the spa won't work. It'll be a sleep kit. For some, it'll be they wear themselves out on the nature hike that we do at Miraval Berkshires. So all those different ways contribute to a person sleeping. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. Blima, you have interior design background and thinking about designing in wellness kind of spaces. What are some of the things that in your experience that perhaps you have insight into that helps with this sleep? And then is there a disconnect between what people think should be in the space or not?
Before I jump into that, I just wanted to comment on what Patrick said. I love this new rollout of the spa experience leading straight into sleep, because I think that's something that we're so mindful of. It's not just what you see, but it's how you feel, and that full experience that the environment is giving you, whether it's the actual room that you're sleeping in or throughout the day, what you're doing to actually encourage that. So that sounds pretty incredible. I would love to hear more about it and possibly visit one of those properties. But when we're looking at the design of the rooms, there's quite a few different aspects that we're really looking at. And Heather, what you mentioned about that everyone really is different. So everyone's looking for something else in order for them to sleep well. So what we do is we look at it from a broader perspective where whoever's in the space can get what it is that they're looking for. So we start with the lighting, for example. So we want to ensure that if someone needs the room to be completely dark, there is no light filtering through from the bottom of the door, from behind the drapery. And beyond that, having layered lighting. So if someone needs a little bit of light, a little bit more light, so giving people those options that they could really tailor their experience to what they need from a space. When we're looking at the linens, the materials that we're using, we want things to be breathable so that if you need a heavier, you need the room to be cooler, you need the room to be hotter, those options are available. We're also looking at acoustics. That's huge. Sometimes in properties, people want to get away with things, and that's something that they think they can cheap out on. But it is so important that sound is not going between walls. Like, that is literally the worst thing when you're trying to fall asleep and you hear voices carrying, whether you could hear their exact words or just sounds. It's really disturbing to guests when they're trying to sleep. So, super important acoustics, both ensuring that the corridor materials will absorb the sounds of people walking by as well as between the rooms, very importantly. And another aspect that we're very mindful of is selecting finishes that absorb. So you have that from a sound perspective, but as well reducing visual stimulation. So if you're trying to sleep, you don't have that disturbing you. We also are mindful of creating intuitive layouts so that people can get from their bed to the restroom and not bump into things. We're always thinking about people's experience, like what it actually feels like to be in this space and how we can ensure that that experience is the most seamless. Looking at the controls, the outlets, bedside tables are easy to reach. So if people have alarms or other things that they'll need while they're sleeping. So we're really looking at so many different aspects because we don't believe that good sleep comes from one feature. It's a result of hundreds of thoughtful design decisions, from lighting to acoustics to temperature, materials, layout, and all of them work together to create this environment that is restful and restorative.
Brett, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I could take it more from the product development and the supply side of the business. And a lot of it starts on this side. What we do when we develop product, not just for hospitality and hotels, but for retail, which is the customer at retail becomes the guest at a hotel. And it's where a lot of the trends start that we're talking about today is in the retail space. And a lot of that is kind of dedicated really to addressing that one part of rest, sleep, which is the big one, like Patrick mentioned a little bit earlier. It's tied incredibly tightly with guest satisfaction, guest loyalty, and everything else. But it's across the entire segment, all product categories that are inside the room. There's a great NRF or National Sleep Foundation NSF study that was in 2025 that talks to like 6 of 10 average adults do not get the rest and the sleep that they need. So it's no wonder that you're seeing people booking trips based on either their past experience with sleep or their current experience with sleep, something that's attracting them to that property. And the interesting thing is it presents kind of an opportunity and a little bit of a challenge too, right? Because if you're going to the property, you're not getting the right night's sleep, you're not getting a good night's rest, you're going to leave. And because it's tied to guest satisfaction, you won't be coming back. But you have a great opportunity as a brand and as a property owner to kind of seal the deal with the guest that comes in to make sure they do want to come back. So there's your opportunity and your challenge that's presented. And like we were talking about a little bit earlier, everything when it comes to sleep is incredibly personal. So right from the pillow on to the blankets, the comforters, the temperature in the room, even when you get into the accessories that are in the room, tissue boxes, all the things like that that go into your experience when you walk into a room and what you come in contact with, not just the bed, not just the bedding, not just the environment that's there. So I think what we're talking about here, where it's designing rest, isn't just about sleep per se. It's about everything in the room. It's about trying to give that guest a wellness story and a rest story that they will come back to over and over again. And when we develop product on our side of things, we usually start with what's a dissatisfier in the marketplace. Why aren't people sleeping out there? What's going on? Is it the noise in the room? Is it the type of pillow that they're sleeping on? There's some great stuff we can talk about a little bit later, where when you look at how people sleep and the pillows they sleep on, it's roughly about 60 to 75% of the population that sleeps side sleepers. They need a more firm pillow in order to get a good night's rest at night, because otherwise your head tilts down towards the mattress and you just wind up feeling not great at all. So all those things that are like little details and studies and testing that we can do go into development of product that makes it incredibly intentional. And then the durability side of it makes it intentional for hospitality. So,
And I think something Brett said that's really interesting, because when we at Hyatt, before we make a move, we're fortunate to have an insights team that shares what guests are actually saying, and the feedback they want. And sleep is always incredibly high in that. But also, it's a huge opportunity, the dissatisfaction with sleep. We were looking at a National Geographic survey that said that only 33% of travelers were satisfied with their sleep. And then we looked at the International Spa Association, which is called iSpa, does a PricewaterhouseCoopers study of the consumer, the spa consumer, which is quite often the same hotel consumer. And something in the 60 to 70% range said that sleep was critical to their stay at a hotel and critical to their mental well-being. So if you look at those two numbers, that's why you see so many people in the hotel space really thinking about sleep and mental health, because it's a broad group of people who really find that is so impactful to their lives, and people don't separate themselves. They're the same people at home when they come to the hotels. And so if they're struggling with sleep at home, they're going to struggle in the hotels. So even if you can give them, this sort of like palliative care, so to speak, around sleep that's not, tied to a lot of medicine or devices, it's very helpful to them. So I think that's really important what Brett called out, that dissatisfaction is the opportunity for us.
100%.
And we have many, many guests that are willing to share when they're dissatisfied with their experience, for sure.
That's right.
Yes.
For sure.
There's the interesting part of one of those studies too, is that of the people that don't get a good night's rest, there's only about 30% of them that actually will say something that they didn't. So they're the silent guests that you lose and you never know you lost them at all. You just know they didn't come back at all. It's the same when it comes to retailers as well. Retailers, the people that complain or that go in and say this was not the way I expected it to be, those are the ones you have the opportunity to fix. But there is always a much wider swath of people that you don't hear from, that you just will never see again or never hear from again.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. So encouraging your guests to give the feedback, whether it's incentivizing them to share or trying to make that personal connection to get the feedback, is really, really important and critical.
Yep.
So one of the things that we've kind of talked a little bit about is understanding the product and the reasoning why these things are chosen. And something that's really critical to creating a relationship with a customer or a guest is the storytelling and understanding the brands. So not just why we're choosing these types of furniture and fixtures and equipment for the spaces, but perhaps the story behind the creation of those pieces. And then also thinking about the authenticity in local communities and brand storytelling. Patrick, do you want to highlight a little bit about that from Hyatt's perspective?
Of course. So in my role, I sit at an enterprise level. So I'm looking globally at how we integrate and activate well-being across all pillars of our business, across all the different brands within our Hyatt portfolio. And the key to making any of this work is to work with our brand leads, because how our luxury team, how our lifestyle team, how our classics team, how our essentials team think about what sleep looks like, and I tie sleep to mental health. They go hand in hand for me. How that looks and how that's expressed will be different in every brand story that we have. So for instance, I said we were working right now in a program in Latin America. We have two different brands that we're working with. One is a luxury brand. And for that particular brand, we're adding into the room story an entire bath ritual program for the person to do in room before they go to bed. And in that particular sleep program, we're also giving them a card that has 5 beautiful yoga poses that we worked with a wonderful woman in Mexico who leads a really beautiful yoga institute. So we partnered with her on this in terms of what are the 5 poses that a person can do after a bath to help them actually relax and get ready for sleep. That's happening specifically in our luxury section of the hotels that we're working with. So we thought about that versus, or in addition to the spa programming, which is going across all of them. So we think about these very, like, who is that guest in that luxury segment in that hotel who has the tub in their room, who has the butler assigned to their room, who can help set this up. And so we think about those types of things. I will say we have a partnership, a wonderful partnership with Headspace, and that's a great tool for us to use across all of our properties, but it's a great tool for our select services because that can be left on in the room at turn down. When the guest comes back, they have that meditation state set up with Headspace to help them, again, power down for the evening. So we think about again what can go across everything, something like Headspace, the properties with spas, those beautiful spa services, and then a beautiful in-room bathing program tied to this beautiful yoga, these yoga positions that help bring the guest to a state of rest and relax. And we partner very closely with our brand leads on these things because, again, we want what we create to be an expression of how they view the brand and how the consumer and how the guest consumes and how the guest experiences those brands. So it's the storytelling is key. It's very, very key.
Mm-hmm. So, Brett, when you think about product development, the story is very central to being able to make that connection. Do you have any examples that you could share?
Yeah, 100%. And it's really interesting when it gets to hospitality, right? Because in a retail environment, you think about when you walk into a retail store, you're presented with packaging and pretty wraps on bags, flyer inserts that tell you what you're about to buy, whether it's the thread count, the cooling features, whatever the case may be. When you get to a hotel, you don't have that experience. You don't have a zippered bag with a lovely insert inside of it telling you the pillow you're going to experience has advanced cooling features or advanced antimicrobial features that are inside of it to keep the pillow fresher longer. None of that can be communicated just by the product like it can in retail. So you have kind of a unique challenge in hospitality, much like Patrick is mentioning, that you've got to find ways to communicate the important things to the customer and the guest. And I would argue not over saturate them with kitschy and kind of niche things in the market. One of the things that's really tough is kind of separating the marketing spin that you see on a lot of product in retail with what the applicable and the real true value designs are that can be actually implemented in hospitality. There's a lot of things that we do for retail customers that just plain and simply will not work in hospitality. And I'll give you a great example of that is think of cooling features. So everybody out there has heard of cooling in your mattresses, your blankets, your pillows, all that good stuff. And what it means is basically it tries to keep your body temperature a little bit lower as the sleep goes on, basically. The challenge with that in hospitality is that the laundering and the use cycles that things go through mean that usually the treatments will wash off, so you don't get that as much as you had when you first started sleeping on it. And the other problem is everything is incremental when it comes to those marketing things. So it's not like you're going to lay in bed and be like, I'm in a fridge, it's so cold. It doesn't work like that. It's just a small difference basically in your body temperature that's going to keep you cool a little bit longer or keep you cooler when you initially get into that bed to get a good night's rest. In retail, no problem. It's much later use. It works on the products and it's there. And hospitality, not so much. That story doesn't always translate from our retail development and our research that we do into hospitality. So when it comes to products, to answer your question, it's got to be an intentional design on them that works for this specific marketplace entirely.
Mm-hmm. And Blima, with your perspective of interior design, how do you use branding in your work?
Yeah, so much of what Brett and Patrick said really tie into what we're looking at when creating the sleep experiences for the different properties that we work on. And something that I want to mention is we're not just in the hospitality space. We're working on senior living, we're working in healthcare, so there are drug rehabs. And, when we're looking at these different sectors, at the end of the day, the premise is the same. We want people, when they're in their rooms preparing to go to sleep, to be able to have whatever they need to make that happen. So I love what Patrick was saying about having different senses and, what Brett mentioned about cooling materials. These are all so important, but they're only offered on a luxury property. So what we want to ensure is that everyone, regardless of the price point, will be getting the sleep that they need, because whether you're spending a base price or it could go way high, when you want to sleep at night, that is so important. So we're looking at it from all angles like that. And then as we build on the experience, we can offer luxury. So like I mentioned, what really is important is creating the mood for people and giving them the optionality to have whatever it is that they need. And we always say that people's environments are so important, and sometimes they don't even realize. And in a bedroom, there's so much that can be done to give people that sense of calm, that sense of space, and relaxation, and encourage that. And even without the high price point, like when Patrick mentioned having Headspace, like we love to offer people the ability within the sound of the room to be able to turn on like a sound machine type of option. So nothing that's an added cost to the client. So we're always looking for ideas like that, which again, when we're looking at drapery, we want to ensure there is blackout. We want to make sure that light does not seep in. And so many ways of leveraging technology that's already available within the guest room experience to even improve people's sleep with that.
Lima, I think it's a great point. And I think there's actually even just in the guest room, regardless of the level of hotel at all, even in the guest room itself, I think a lot of things get neglected at times. We talked a little bit during our prep call about this, that when you think about the room holistically, you have to even include things like a guest that doesn't want to sleep with the stuff that's on the bed at all. So they go to the closet to grab the pillow and the blanket out of the closet. Too often times that's going to be like, it's just an afterthought. It gets put in the closet. It's whatever fleece blanket they can throw in or whatever pillow goes in the closet. You've got to treat every guest, regardless of level of hotel and regardless of what product they're grabbing from the room, that it's the same intent for rest, whether it's a closet pillow or whether it's a pillow on the bed or whether it's, a 5-star luxury property or a 2-star property. Doesn't really make a difference because the guests will respond the same. To Patrick's point that, everybody they're all the same guests. The people that shop at retail, they're the people that want to sleep at home. So whether they're going to a property just for that purpose, it becomes important to treat them like it.
And I think it's interesting. We're talking about kind of two aspects. We're talking about like the physical space, but also all of the things and services you can bring either into the space or leading up to the space to be able to help with this perspective on sleep and improving sleep and then ultimately guest satisfaction. So it's been, really fascinating to hear these different kind of insights and things. I'm frantically writing notes of things to follow up on from my personal experience. And, for our audience, we've gathered a fair amount of really unique insights and information. What would you want to say to someone who's listening on this webinar, that what they could take away from your work, your experience, and maybe immediately bring to the attention of their organization to be able to impact the quality of the sleep that their guests are having? Is there anything that you would say, okay, these 3 things or key takeaways that they could be able to apply immediately? And maybe Patrick, I'm going to put you on the spot to start.
I think the first thing you have to do when you're thinking about doing any kind of program like this is assess where you are today and really understanding from a product standpoint, what's really happening, let's say, in your guest room. You know, to Blima's point, are your blackout curtains not sufficient? and you have to, everyone has to leave their ego and their pride at the door and say, this is where we really are, no judgment. Because that will help you set the path. And then you sort of have to understand what and my work is probably a little more not like ABC, but I think assessing where you are in terms of a property, in terms of a guest room product, and then also understanding what do you want your approach to be? Because right now there's so much that one can do to help people sleep better. There are a million different things that are in market to help people do that. You as a hotel operator or a hotel owner have to make the decision about what your point of view is going to be on that. And that may take some time and a bit of study. And then once you do that, it's finding the right partners, either internally or externally, that can help you execute in a way that's financially responsible, but will still yield the results that you want to see. In Hyatt's case, we specifically started thinking first about the business traveler because they're in our hotels the most. And then we let that cascade into the more leisure, the more independent traveler guest coming into our hotels. But once we have that core set, it was very easy to spread it out across the entire guest profile walking through our doors. So I think it's evaluate what you have, come up with your point of view about how you want to address the challenges that you see, and then to also find those partners who can help you execute what you want that vision to be, because you probably can't do it on your own. And the biggest piece is nothing I said here was complicated. It doesn't have to be super complex or like, we're not flying jets here, right? So I think you have to also make it something that can be executed day in, day out, particularly in hotels. If it becomes complex, they will not do it. So those are my big takeaways.
Excellent. That's a great framework. Excellent. Brett?
I think probably the biggest takeaway when it comes to like purchasing, setting standards, when it comes to specs, I mean, obviously it's the operational side of it, what can be implemented and what can't, what works in a hotel and what's not going to work. But I think even before that starts and you're developing product as a hotelier or as a brand, I think you really need to take a look at how you're developing the product. Are you looking at, like, let's use pillows, for example. Are you looking at a pillow the way you sleep at night on a pillow? Or are you looking at it the way your guest sleeps at night on a pillow? Because they are very, very different, right? So you have to be able to create product, which is tough, right? And that's where the good partners that Patrick was talking about really come in handy. You have to be able to create product that is designed for the mass audience, or designed to hit the biggest bang for the smallest difference in rooms. Pillow menus are a huge thing these days right now in the marketplace. A lot of people are getting involved in them. Operationally, I'm sure Patrick will probably tell you the same thing. They are not an easy thing to implement. Housekeepers usually don't like pillow menus that much because it's just hard to make them operationally work. For a supplier, and whether you're a manufacturer, importer, or whatever, it's hard for us to make those products work because they're usually smaller volume. It's hard to forecast them like you're going to. So I think you need to really look at why you're doing that. If you can hit 80% of the people with a medium density pillow out there and create something that they're going to love with a couple of extra bells and whistles on the product, which we try and do in our development practice, then you're going to be in great shape on it. But it starts with you saying, okay, I sleep on a soft pillow, but 80% of the people outside of me are never going to want to sleep on a soft pillow. So why would I buy that at all? And not spec that product based on what you think. So it's that those kind of misconceptions, and then the operational side of it that really are the kind of the two biggest takeaways. What's going to last the longest and keep giving you that guest satisfaction that you want and the guest loyalty that you need over and over again.
I think one of the things that's interesting to consider, there have been some brands that have created a product that has been so popular by their guests, it becomes in demand, almost like a separate retail stream of,
yep,
you can have our pillow, our special pillow, yeah. Our pillow topper for the bed or what have you.
Yeah.
People will they will pay to take it home into their own space to have the same sleep experience.
100%. And that's the interesting thing, because it's a guest sales program or a retail sales program, which most larger hotel brands have in place. Even smaller ones, have a lot of these in place. Small luxury properties do that type of a thing, because the stuff that we create for the hotels is unique for the hotels. You can't go to a retail store and pick up the exact same pillow. And we used to hear that, years and years ago, when a couple of different hotel brands launched into retailers, into Nordstrom and into, there was a couple that were launched into Costco, I think. And it's a different product that goes to retail, because you're approaching a different guest. So they buy it, they take it home, they're like, this isn't what I slept on. And then they want to return it. And the only place they can buy the product is at the hotel, because it was designed for that market and that brand usually.
Blima, what are your thoughts, key takeaways?
What I would say is, if someone's looking for a way today to make those changes, or they're starting to approach the design, is really to understand what the purpose of the room is. So when we look at hospitality, there's so many different purposes, but specifically the guest room is typically to sleep, unless if there is a suite, there's other parts connected to it, but not to lose sight of that. And when we were talking earlier about brand narratives and the story of a property, sometimes operators get lost in the way it looks. So when people walk in, this should tie back to what this property is about, what the brand story is. And I always tell our clients that's so important, because you want people to have that experience, but to really understand the purpose of the space. So looking at the room and knowing we need to ensure that sleep is number one here, and looking at it from that perspective. And sometimes I tell my clients, try to sleep in this room, see what you feel, and the different people working on the space, because once you go there and even take a quick nap, there are so many things that you can discover in that time that your guests will be experiencing. And when you're talking about a ground up, that's something different. And obviously then we're incorporating all the aspects. But sometimes if you already have that property and you're looking to make upgrades, just go into the room, see how you feel. But again, sleep is so personal. So that's why I always stress that ensuring that whatever anyone would want could be achievable. And really working with what you already have, but just being more intentional about it. And that's why I brought up sound, because every room comes with a TV, and you can just make that sound into a sound machine. So just looking at what you already have. If you don't have dimmers, putting in bulbs that could dim, just really taking that approach so that anyone who comes to your property can get that good night's sleep, because it's so important. And I think it was Brett who mentioned that there are those silent guests that are not giving reviews, but at the same time, I would say they're more than 50% of your, I've stayed in so many hotels over my time and I have yet to leave a review. So, but I am giving those reviews internally, and I know where I want to go again. So it's so important to be mindful of all these aspects, because not only are people remembering the way it looked, but so much more so is how they felt. And I believe that that's fundamental in design, is understanding how people will experience your space, and experiencing a good night's sleep is the best way to do that, like Heather mentioned at the beginning of this talk.
Well, I think it's a great suggestion to be able to go in and really participate in the space as if you are your guest, to be able to see and observe things that looked good on paper, but in reality, with the space that you have, how is it really impacting the experience? That's great. Great points. Some great
Patrick can
feedback.
set us up with that. It'll be fantastic. We'll just pick a great Hyatt property, preferably one in a tropical location, and I'm in. So
I want to try the sleep kit and sign up for the sleep with the spa, and we'll be your little guinea pigs, and we will give feedback for you.
Yes, yes.
So,
Yeah,
well,
I would
yeah.
love to learn more about that spa experience as part of the sleep
Oh,
experience because I've actually been exploring some ideas like that. So this sounds super interesting.
yes, we should talk.
Well, I think this has been a very informative webinar, thinking about how can we design for better sleep and recovery. So it's not just the actual sleep, but like being in the spaces and utilizing the spaces for rejuvenation and recovery. It incorporates the built environment. It incorporates the service aspect associated with the sleep and the experience. So I think we've had some really amazing insights today, and hope to continue the conversation. So to close, I just want to thank Brett and Blima and Patrick for sharing your insights and your experiences, to be able to understand this challenge and the opportunities that organizations have to be able to improve sleep quality. So thank you all for joining the International Luxury Hotel Association's webinar series. Thank you also to JLA Hospitality for making this webinar possible. You will find the recording of this webinar at ilha.org under Discover. Thank you very much.